If you could only take right now to the World Cup, Zendejas or Diego Luna, who would you take?
We might look back on this as a very significant window in the run-up to the World Cup because it's the one in which the U.S. figured out its formation.
Now the next Matt comes along and says, no, not so fast, Matt. If we somehow find a way to not have Jedi Robinson on the field, we better be awesome. Hello, sunshine. I'm Alexi, and welcome to State of the Union Podcast. We look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue colored glasses. This show will be talking, the closing of the window, World Cup spots filling up, Devo making it out of the group, Ray Hudson, World Cup ticket confusion, and so much more. But first, joining us, always, my friend, my colleague, my guiding light, David Mosse, a soccer savant and a Fox Soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire. Mosse, how you doing on this? What are we looking at here now? Wednesday, September 10th in the year 2025.
I'm doing well. It's a little odd not having Stu right next to me. I feel like a guy in an airplane that has an entire row to himself.
Yeah, I mean, we got a good, healthy dose of Stu over the window, and I think we got enough. I think our folks got enough, and you got to be selective as to when you bring Stu in, but he always brings it. He was wonderful on both of the podcasts. If you haven't listened, go ahead and listen to our instant reactions to both the games, the U.S. games over the window, and it was fun to hear what Stu had to say. And again, to give him credit again for talking about playing a back three for a long time here and having that come to fruition. Have you watched anything or read anything or seen anything? We haven't done those, what have we been watching over the last couple of shows? So you might have a bank.
Well, first off, I'm going to reiterate what I mentioned at the end of last night's pod. This new HBO show, Task, starring Mark Ruffalo, is terrific.
Yep.
The first episode aired this past Sunday. It was excellent. Very excited. 7 episodes. That's going to be the big HBO show people are going to talk about for the next few weeks. I know you're going to wait until it's over before you binge it. And then in terms of something that's coming out in the next couple days, another Downton Abbey movie. This is being billed as the last one, the grand finale of this story. I was a big fan of the TV show. I've enjoyed the movie so far, so I'm definitely going to check this out.
It's been advertised everywhere. You can't avoid it. It is out there, and Downton's coming for its final big thing. I watched it after, and not knowing that there was going to be other movies and that kind of stuff. So they're milking it for all it is worth. I'm assuming this is going to be the last thing, but you are going to watch this movie then.
Absolutely.
Now, is this one of the movies? Have we gotten to the point now where we're back to movie theaters, where this is going to be in the movie theaters, or how's this working?
Yes, it will be out on theaters.
Okay, so you can't stream it anymore. They had me where all movies kind of came out and you could get them, on the streaming service, but now they're sending us back to the movie theater.
Well, but I think it'll eventually go on the streamers. So now what happens is a movie comes out first in the theaters and then later on in the streaming.
And people still go to the theaters?
Oh, yeah.
Really? I can't remember if I mentioned the Jussie Smollett documentary. Did I mention that? Do you remember that?
Don't think so.
So that's over on Netflix. It's called The Truth about Jussie Smollett. And for those that remember that whole crazy story in Chicago, it's told kind of from his vantage point, and you're left kind of scratching your head going, well, what, not what really happened, because I think it's pretty obvious what really happened, but I don't think that this necessarily did him any favors in terms of telling his story. But who knows? Maybe there's more to the story going on. It was interesting, but I didn't leave thinking anything different than I feel and have felt all along regarding Jussie Smollett. And then I saw a Devo documentary. Devo, have you ever heard of the band Devo? Whip It, Whip It
have
Good.
Heard
all
of
right?
them, yes.
So that's their major hit. I was not a big Devo fan, but if you ever meet a Devo fan, they are incredibly passionate, over the moon devoted, and they will absolutely die on the Devo hill. And that's, a fan base that you want. But what was interesting in this documentary, because I've seen some other ones, and they were always a weird, quirky, eccentric type of band in the way that they performed, but also in the way that they carried themselves. And they were kind of the anti-big band, especially when it came in the 80s. But when they were good, at least from my perspective, when they were really, really good pop songs, they were really, really good. But then there was a lot of stuff that I just didn't care for. What was interesting, and this is why it's a good documentary, is that even if you're not into the band, you got invested in the documentary. And I never realized how almost wonderfully subversive they were in the things that they were doing and the things that they put into the music and what they were trying to say. And this gets into a lot of the different ways in which they went about it. And I have a much greater fondness and respect for Devo as a band, not necessarily their music, but what they attempted to do. And in some cases succeeded, but it was really well done. And it's not like a real, like I said, arty and eccentric type of documentary, which I've seen before. I think even if you've never even heard of Devo, even if you don't even like Devo, I think you will like this documentary. All right. Shall we light this candle, my friend?
Let's do it.
Where should we start?
We are going to begin with the U.S. men's national team. They split their 2 games in this window, a 2-0 defeat to South Korea in Harrison, New Jersey, followed by a 2-0 win over Japan in Columbus, Ohio. Zendejas and Balogun with the goals. We taped lengthy post-game pods after each of those matches with special guest Stu Holden. You've now had another day to reflect on this window. Overall thoughts?
Yeah, so I thought about it driving in today to work, and I thought about yesterday, and I don't know about you, but when we're doing a live show, it's got a little different type of energy, and obviously it's live, so it's there. Not that we go back and correct hardly anything that we that we do on the show, even when we're not doing it live. But you're in the moment, and you're passionate, and that's a good thing. I think that comes out, and I think people enjoy that. And then you wake up in the cold, sometimes harsh light of a new day, and maybe you have a different type of feeling. I don't think my feelings on this window have changed. And that, as I said yesterday, I am going to kind of give grace, but I guess more importantly, almost throw it out. And I know that doesn't lend itself to analyzing or talking about or opining on what we do on this podcast, which is often talk about this U.S. national team, especially relative to the World Cup next summer. But because of the way that Mauricio Pochettino framed this window, I am going to not save my judgment, but kind of push this one out and put all of my focus and energy into that next window. Because as we said last night, we expect that one to be as close to his group as possible, with the understanding that there's still time and there are going to be some individual changes going on. But ultimately, I don't think it was a successful camp. I think it raised questions. I think for some people, it confirmed some of their suspicions when it comes to how good or how not good this team actually is. I think that Mauricio Pochettino, maybe for the first time, came in for some criticism, and we saw how he reacted. And I don't know if you saw him. There was something about him talking about when he addressed the media yesterday after the game. He almost apologized to them, saying, "I wasn't angry and I wasn't screaming and yelling about you necessarily." And I think he mentioned his wife at the time. It was actually an incredibly endearing type of moment to see Mauricio Pochettino say that. But he understands that he's going to get criticism. All of that is to say is that I think some real judgment and maybe some real answers are going to come in this next window.
I think this was 2 different windows, one with a back 4 and one with a back 3. And the performance against Japan was so good that I think it added some gloss to those last 30 minutes against South Korea. It makes you think maybe that wasn't about South Korea taking their foot off the gas. Maybe it had to do with the formation change. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the 120 minutes in this window in which the U.S. played in that back 3, they looked pretty good, created a lot of chances, scored some nice goals, should have scored more. So I think we might look back on this as a very significant window in the run-up to the World Cup because it's the one in which the U.S. figured out its formation. I do think it's going to be this 3-4-2-1 moving forward, and now it's just about plugging in the right pieces, a different third center back than Blackman alongside Richards and Ream. Obviously, Dest and Jedi as the wing backs. I would put McKennie alongside Adams in the midfield, and then another player alongside Pulisic floating behind the center forward. And I do think that player needs to be more playmaker-ish, less winger. So it probably knocks out Timmy Weah, because you're going to be in this formation relying on your wing backs to provide the width. So it would be somewhat redundant to have Dest as a wing back and Timmy Weah as well. So I think you're looking more of a Tillman or a Gio Reyna if he can have a good season at Gladbach, as that other guy alongside Pulisic playing behind a center forward, which we now think Balogun has reestablished himself as the favorite there, but maybe Pepe can make a run at him. So all of a sudden there is a path here. I think U.S. fans do come out of this window feeling better about things than they were going in, and certainly they were after the South Korea match.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned Balogun. So let's get into kind of the stars of the window as far as I'm concerned. And I know I started this off saying that I'm kind of throwing this window out, but it happened and we still should look at it. And I do think that some people help themselves and increase their stock. So if I'm giving you my 3 stars of the window that help themselves the most, I think I'm going to go from 1 to 3. So 1 is Flo Balogun, 2, Matt Freese in goal, and 3, Serginho Dest. When I talk about Serginho Dest, look, we know how his injury and how serious his injury was. We didn't get to see him this summer. He comes back in. It's not that he didn't miss a beat. I don't think he's back yet to where he can be, and I think where he will be and where I hope he will be. But he obviously made an impact. And he is going to, if he's even 80%, going to be on the field because he's that good and that impactful. I only think he's going to get better. So I think he confirmed to us, to Pochettino, and maybe even to himself that he is back. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing for us. Matt Freese, I was going back to put him at 1 or 2, but I think he's the number 1. We've talked about this, that it's amazing that he is, and maybe says a whole lot more about our goalkeeping core than it does necessarily about Matt Freese. But timing is everything. He was there this summer, made a big splash in terms of saving the penalties, went to the final. I thought he should have done better on one of the goals, certainly against Korea. He got his shutout last night, made some good saves, and I think established himself as more than just a guy who saves penalties, which I think he kind of needed to do. And again, like I said, timing. He's there. It's open. There's a competition. Matt Turner, who for a long time was the incumbent, wasn't even in this camp. So I'm going to put Matt Freese at 2. And the only reason I wouldn't put him at 1 is that I'm still not convinced, as you may be, that Matt Freese is going to be the starting goalkeeper come next summer. And then number 1, Balogun comes back in, even in that 20 minutes, like you mentioned in that first game, changed the complexion of the game. And I know sometimes it's unfair to judge a substitute. The game state and all that kind of stuff has changed. But then to see him in the game yesterday, obviously get a goal, be much more active. And certainly if you're comparing and contrasting with what Josh Sargent did, it's man versus boy. And so I have him as my number 1 in terms of the 3 stars.
Can I identify some losers in this window?
Yes, absolutely. We love losers here on the State of the Union.
Certainly Josh Sargent, as you mentioned. Yep. I'm really wondering how many more chances he's going to get in this cycle. Timmy Weah, who I just mentioned, only because I do think this switch in formation knocks him out of the starting lineup. His role would be as the backup right wing back to Serginho Dest. And then I'm going to lump these two together. Diego Luna and Sebastian Berhalter, 2 players that you're wondering if they could kick on from the Gold Cup. Didn't have particularly great windows, so I think that little bit of that momentum is dissipated and they might fall back down the pecking order.
Hold on. Let me push back a little bit here. Timmy Weah, you think that in this type of system, he can't play where? Like who's playing over him?
So as I said before, in a 3-4-2-1,
right?
I think those 2 behind the center forward, you're looking for more playmaker-ish types like a Pulisic and a Gio, or a Pulisic and a Tillman. I think putting Weah in one of those spots would be somewhat redundant because he's more of a winger. And in this formation, you're giving Serginho Dest a lot of freedom to bomb up that right side. So I do think this switch from a 3-4-2-1 maybe knocks him out of the starting lineup. I agree. In a 4-3-3, where you do play with wingers, then I do like him as that right winger, but I think the U.S. might be moving away from that.
Yeah, I do think that Mauricio Pochettino likes Tim Weah, and it would... I mean, these are nice problems to have someone of his quality coming off the bench, but I think it would irk me a little bit to not have him in the starting lineup. I understand exactly what you're saying, and I think it's completely valid. Now, when it comes to Diego Luna, obviously he started in the first game, and nobody played well in the first game, and that was obviously not a good game to be a part of and associated with, as did Sebastian Berhalter, and then Diego Luna came in the second game. A lot of talk about Zendejas. Scored a really good goal, but we also know that he hasn't been great for the national team. If you could only take right now to the World Cup, Zendejas or Diego Luna, who would you take? I got that question today on X, and I was thinking about it in my ride to the studio.
If I had to make this choice tomorrow, it would be Luna. I think he's shown more with the national team.
But you still call him a loser from this window.
Yeah, because coming off the Gold Cup, there was this real sense that he needed to be a starter. And I think he's fallen off a little bit in that regard. In a squad of 26, he still makes it, but I'm not sure he's looked upon as a starter after this window.
He didn't have those moments, and he didn't have, or even a moment, but I thought that he was active. I didn't think he was hiding, even in a game, in that first game, where everybody did not look good. So, yeah, I would agree with you. If I had to pick between those two, I'm not going to let the goal, which was a wonderful goal from Zendejas in that game against Japan, I'm not going to let that shade me and now go, oh, well, Zendejas is the best thing ever, because we have seen time and time again when he's come into the national team where he hasn't performed. I do think that he certainly helped his case. I'm talking about Alex Zendejas. But if it's between Diego Luna and Zendejas, I think I'm going Luna at this point. But, things could change. But you agree with my three that made the biggest mark. Do you have anybody else that didn't do themselves any favors?
Well, I would say a loser who wasn't in this camp is Matt Turner, because if we're saying that Matt Freese played really well and solidified
himself. Well, you're
himself,
saying that, he's the starting goalkeeper.
Yeah.
So you've influenced me and you've impacted me, so I have him as my number 2 there.
Yeah, I went into this window thinking Pochettino was getting cute there. Matt Turner clearly is the better option. But Matt Freese played really well and really elevated my opinion of him. So I don't know. Now it's going to be interesting to see which one of those two. I think it's between those two to start the World Cup.
So almost Matt has been matted, right? Because if we remember your history in terms of what happened with Matt Turner, him taking that job, now the next Matt comes along and says, no, not so fast, Matt. All right, where should we go to now?
Well, we should mention another interesting game last night. Mexico, South Korea in Nashville. It finished 2-2. Raul Jimenez scored first. South Korea then rallied, took a 2-1 lead. Song Heung-min came off the bench to get one of the South Korea goals, but then Santi Jimenez equalized in stoppage time. Our colleague Judy Boyd was at a Korean barbecue restaurant last night. She texted me and Stu. She said everybody was watching the game and fired up about it. So World Cup fever is gripping this country. But so in the inevitable compare and contrast, we do Mexico face the same opponents as the U.S. in reverse. It was 0-0 against Japan, 2-2 against South Korea. So 2 draws for Mexico, a loss and a win for the U.S.
Yeah. Would you rather, if it just was the talent, if the World Cup started today, would you rather people in a USA jersey be all populated by the Mexican team, the Canadian team, or the U.S. team as of today?
I think the U.S. has the most talent and the highest ceiling. Up until this window, I would have said Mexico has a more sorted team with Aguirre. He's got instilled this fighting spirit. But like I said, I'm curious to see how the U.S. kicks on from this window, because I think they found something here with this back 3 formation.
But do you think that the Mexican Federation and the Mexican leadership looks at this window as a failure?
No, but
No.
Mexico, to me, I've said this before, they're just a solid team that's going to look to grind out results. There's nothing overly exciting with them. I don't think they're that
You don't
talented.
find Mexico sexy, is what you're saying.
No, I think they just went back to a sort of a safe pair of hands in Aguirre. I've said this before. He's almost like their Bruce Arena.
Right.
So he knows the drill, and he's just going to build a solid, organized team. They've got a really good spine there with Raul Jimenez up front and Edson Alvarez in that midfield, Cesar Montes at the back. And so they're going to be an annoying team to play against at the World Cup, and I could see them having a decent run, but it's not going to be based on any kind of sparkling football. I don't think they're that impressive.
So of the power rankings for sexiness when it comes to the United States, Canada, and Mexico, U.S. is at top. Then who? Between Canada and Mexico, which is sexier for David Mosse?
David Mosse's sexy ranking. That's a scary thought.
Well, what do you got?
I think
If you say that
Canada actually have the pieces. If with Alphonso Davies healthy and Jonathan David up there, I don't know, it's close between those two. But I do stand by the fact that the U.S. It hasn't really looked at for much of the last year, but they still have the most talent and the highest ceiling of those three if everything clicks.
Wow. Okay. But you got Canada at 2 then? I mean, there's not a whole lot that's ever been, that's ever been sexy when it comes to Canada. I mean, Pamela Anderson, I guess. But all right. So you're going to put...
in the after the South Korea match when everybody was upset, including you who were calling for Pochettino to be fired, I did get a cheeky post on X, somebody asking if you could go back in time, would you rather the U.S. have hired Jesse Marsh instead of Pochettino? Which was an interesting question. I did think about it for a minute.
Well, I think there's a lot of people out there that would say I would have rather this guy, or this guy. That's kind of what we do. But I've calmed down since then. Okay, I own everything that I say, even if it's in the heat and the passion of a horrible result and a horrible performance. But you bob and you weave and you move around, and that's what we do. Anything else before we take a quick break here?
That's it.
All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to look at the rest of the world because there's all sorts of stuff that's going on when it comes to World Cup qualifying. Like we said, that music is going to stop, and only a certain amount of teams are going to have a chair at the table, which is the 2026 World Cup. So don't go anywhere. Okay, welcome back. As we promised, let's take a look around the world because there was all sorts of World Cup qualifying games going on, all sorts of craziness in terms of scores and results and things that you could predict and couldn't predict. And where should we start here, Mosse?
We're going to start in South America. CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying is in the books. On Thursday, Colombia, Uruguay, and Paraguay became the last 3 automatic qualifiers, joining Argentina, Ecuador, and Brazil. So all that was left to decide on the final match day was whether Venezuela or Bolivia would go to the Intercontinental Playoffs. Venezuela lost 6-3 at home to Colombia, and Bolivia beat Brazil 1-0 at home thanks to a very dodgy penalty. The Venezuelans are furious that this is what knocked them out of the World Cup. But in the end, Bolivia leapfrogged Venezuela. They go to the playoffs. Venezuela, the only CONMEBOL nation yet to make a World Cup, and that drought continues.
So it was a kind of a dodgy. If you're watching the show, you can see it was, I mean, it was phantom, I think, Mosse. Would you agree?
Yeah, although I can't have too much sympathy for Venezuela. We're arguing about finishing 7th or 8th out of 10 teams.
I know. We talked about that before. For those that may remember back in the 1900s when the Men's World Cup was happening in 1994, Bolivia was part of the 1994 World Cup. So they do have I don't want to say a pedigree, but a history of going to the World Cups. But this would be something, obviously, whenever we talk about Bolivia, oftentimes we talk about in the context of the altitude and the advantage that they get when it comes to qualifying. The great Marco Echeverri did not have a wonderful World Cup in that he got a red card the first game. Back then, the first game was Germany versus Bolivia in Chicago with Oprah Winfrey and Diana Ross and all the craziness that was going on. And then Bolivia went out and proceeded to not do great, and Marco Echeverri got a red card. I remember we were watching it when we were up in Pontiac getting ready for our game in the Silverdome.
And we all know that was June 17, 1994, thanks to ESPN 30 for 30, which chronicled all the other crazy things happening that day, including the OJ Bronco chase. And yesterday there's a lot of talk about famous Bolivia-Brazil games in the past. Bolivia actually handed Brazil their first ever World Cup qualifying defeat back in 1993 in La Paz, qualifying for the 94 World Cup in the United States, which Brazil ended up winning. So, yeah, it's tough to play down there. And by the way, this match wasn't even in La Paz. They moved it to a different city that's higher altitude than La Paz. So yeah, there were Brazilian players just collapsing on the field. It was tough.
You play what you take the advantages that you can get. We've played in very, very cold situations. We've been taken to very, very hot situations. In this case, it's the altitude. So Bolivia goes to the playoff now. And then they could face a CONCACAF team or others in order to get one of those spots. And then if that were to happen, like you said, 7 out of the 10, 70% of the CONMEBOL teams would qualify for the 25 or 26 World Cup.
And then the other interesting development in CONMEBOL last night, Ecuador beat Argentina 1-0. Moises Caicedo and Nicolas Otamendi got themselves sent off in that match. Letter of the law, they're supposed to miss the opening match of the World Cup. Now, Stu Holden last night was skeptical. He thinks that they'll figure out a way around that. We'll see.
I just think I understand that there has to be a punishment, and there has to be a punishment relative to a red card. And I understand you have to guard against the last game of a qualifying process, people just losing their mind and taking red cards to assure whatever result it is they want. If there is no consequence to that action, and in this case, we're talking about a major consequence of missing the first game of a World Cup, then things could happen. But for this length of time and for the importance that the World Cup, the World Cup finals next summer are, I just think you have to be reasonable. And I guess, you can't be a little pregnant, like we always say. So, but to Stu's point, they're going to find a way to to fix. I would think. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're just saying this is just the way that it is. But you're cheating the teams and you're cheating the tournament out of good players, and you're cheating them out of good players in a way that doesn't have to be done because of the vast length of time. But I guess, the playoffs are going to happen, and there's going to be teams, even though we're going to have the draw in December, there will be teams that will not have qualified yet that have the potential to qualify. And so it goes into 2026, and you got to guard against the red cards. But I hope they find a way to kind of wash those away.
And then in Africa, we had our first two qualifiers in this window, Morocco and Tunisia. Morocco, we know, semifinalists at the last World Cup. We'll see what they can do for an encore in 26.
They were great, huh? I mean, they were fun to watch. They brought energy. They brought not just excitement from Morocco, but for that neck of the woods, if you will. And they were a breath of fresh air. So I'm excited to have them back. I think everybody should be, because this is not just a team, but this is a country, men's and women's, that is constantly in the mix, Mosse, when we talk about, obviously, bidding for World Cups and teams doing well. So there is something in the water, as we talked about before, and this is absolutely deserved, and it makes the World Cup better.
They were the runners-up to host 26. Then we go to CONCACAF, the final round of qualifying, off and running. Some interesting results in Group A. Panama with a pair of draws, 0-0 away to Suriname, and then 1-1 at home to Guatemala. So they're in third place right now in their group, which is surprising.
Yeah, it's surprising. Well done to El Salvador sitting at 3, and then I guess the surprise is Suriname sitting at the top of the group there. I think, that next window things will change. I still would put my money on Panama finding a way through, but not a great start in this window.
Group B, Jamaica with 2 wins out of 2. They're on top with 6 points, so logic there. And then Group C, Costa Rica right now staring up at Honduras. Costa Rica last night, crazy game, 3-3 draw with Haiti. Dukins Nazon with a hat trick for Haiti in that one.
Wow. All right. Going back to Group B, remember how down we were on Jamaica this summer in Gold Cup, but they seem to have gotten their mojo, and a World Cup is good when Jamaica is there. So hopefully that continues on for them. Nazon got 3. Was that what you said?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, that would be fun. And then top 3, or the winners of all 3 groups, go automatically, and then the next best 2 go to the playoffs.
Correct. We go to Europe next. Kylian Mbappe scored in both France games against Ukraine and Iceland. He's now up to 52 international goals. He moved past Thierry Henry for second all-time on the France list. He's just 5 behind Olivier Giroud. Keep in mind, Mbappe has another even bigger record he can break next summer. He's on 12 World Cup goals. The record is 16 by Miroslav Klose. Messi, by the way, is on 13, so he could break that record as well.
If you had to bet right now, who breaks it? Messi or Mbappe? Obviously, completely different spectrums in terms of where they are, but you're going to bet against Messi scoring a bunch of goals?
I think they'll both pass Klose.
Oh, really?
It'll be a question between the two of them. And
so it's who gets 5
more
goals or 6 goals or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. You think Thierry Henry was, a little bent out of shape that he got passed by?
Well, that and something else, Henry and Zidane were positioning themselves to be the next France coach after the 26 World Cup, replacing Didier Deschamps. And now all signs are pointing to Zidane. Henry even got interviewed and was asked about it, and he kind of said in a resigned tone, I think we all know which way this is going. So I think it's going to be Zinedine Zidane.
Don't worry. Thierry, don't cry for Thierry. Thierry's going to be just fine. Let me tell you that. He's going to be fine. I think Thierry's going to have some wonderful things to look forward to.
On the topic of goal scoring records, the Netherlands in this window, first they played Poland to a 1-1 draw, then a 3-2 away win over Lithuania. That one was live on FS1. Memphis Depay scored 2 goals in that one, moving past Robin van Persie to become the Netherlands' all-time leading scorer at 52. Van Persie's at 50.
At 50? Oof. All right. Well, all right. So Netherlands, that was Lithuania. We're looking at here. Look at him.
Well, this gives me a chance to, I've mentioned this stat before. I find it fascinating. Virtually every top footballing nation, the all-time top scorer is a recent player, with the exception of Italy, where it's still Luigi Riva at 35. Nobody has been able to surpass him. That's a guy that played in the 60s and 70s.
They churn them and burn them over there nowadays when it comes to Italy. Speaking of Italy, we'll get to them in a second.
Yes. Germany also Sunday on FS1. John Strong and Stu Holden called this one. They picked up a much-needed 3-1 home win over Northern Ireland. Gnabry, Amiri, and Wirtz with their goals. Germany bouncing back from a shock 2-0 defeat to Slovakia in the first game of the window, which had really turned up the heat on Julian Nagelsmann.
Yeah, so they sit third in their group right now. But do you or anybody out there actually have any doubts that Germany is going to find a way to qualify?
I do, yeah. I mean,
really?
The results have not been good. And again, we keep talking about this. In Europe, the calculus hasn't changed that much. It's only the group winner that qualifies automatically, and the runners-up find themselves in playoffs against other good teams. So it's not 100% certainty. I would bet on Germany qualifying, but that loss to Slovakia already put them behind the 8 ball a little bit.
Yeah, but they have a win, they have a loss there. 3 points. Like I said, they're tied with Northern Ireland. And Luxembourg is the other team in their group. So, and again, only the first place team qualifies automatically. So maybe they're going to take the hard way, but I still think that Germany is going to figure it out.
And then Italy, who are now coached by Gennaro Gattuso, they scored 10 goals in their 2 games, including a nutty 5-4 win over Israel. Sandro Tonali with the stoppage time winner. Now, Italy is a country that I think is going to have to go the playoff route because Norway, who are in their group, have a perfect 5 wins out of 5. The latest victory for them, 11-1 over Moldova. Erling Haaland scored 5 goals. So I think Italy are going to finish behind Norway in that group.
If you could only have Italy and this version of Italy or this version of Norway with an Erling Haaland at a World Cup, which one would you take?
In terms of like as a spectator?
Yeah, take the business part out of it.
I want Haaland at a World Cup.
Yeah, I want Erling Haaland at a World Cup too. However, there are more people that are going to watch an Italian team, even an average Italian team, but an Italian team still, again, back in the United States, site of when they went to the final, obviously the incredible Italian-American community that exists here, or just people that like to watch Italy. It would not be good for the tournament if Italy isn't there, although we have had plenty of tournaments and they've been wonderful still without Italy. But this is the anti-Italy that we are seeing in that they're completely unorganized. They can't hold a lead. They can't defend. They have no real stars, let alone someone that's going to consistently put the ball in the back of the net. And because of now what has been a multiple cycles of futility when it comes to World Cup, they don't scare anybody. And I don't know, to your point, if it's changing anymore. So, yeah, I want Italy at a World Cup, but they're not scaring me in this version, another version of an impotent type of Germany.
One more. I'm going off rundown here.
Ooh,
Cristiano Ronaldo continues to score goals. 3 in 2 games in this window. He got 2 against Armenia, 1 against Hungary. He's now up to 141 for Portugal, 942 for his career. He's closing in on 1,000 career goals.
1,000?
Yeah.
But those are documented. They're not like the Romario 1,000 or whatever. What was
Correct.
the one where we had to take his word for it?
And actually, Cristiano even said in an interview, and this was interpreted as a shot at Pele, he said, all 1,000 of mine, there's footage of it. You're going to be able to go watch replays of it.
That's not nice, Cristiano. That's not nice. That's not nice.
But, we haven't mentioned this yet. There are reports that the U.S.'s opponents in the March window next year will be Portugal and Belgium. So we could see Cristiano Ronaldo here in March of next year, perhaps adding to his goal total, moving closer to 1,000 if he scores against the U.S.
Well, it would be documented. And what's that? It's 11 years or something since Cristiano has played in the United States?
2014, yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, come on back, for a friendly, and then the big enchilada this summer from a Portuguese perspective. Okay, shall we put some previews of what's coming?
Yeah, so we closed the book on the international window, and now we transition to the club stuff, which fires up again this upcoming weekend. We're going to focus on U.S. players who were not in this latest camp because we've talked plenty about those. So we'll go in Serie A first. Huge one. Juventus will host Inter. Weston McKennie hoping to star in that one.
Weston McKennie, he plays, what position does he play, right? He's an American player, right? We'll hopefully see him in an American shirt here going forward in this next window. But until then, continuing to, I would say, star for Juventus and continuing to be a consistent starter. We've seen over the last couple of years in multiple different positions, but that's what makes him, I think, so valuable to Juventus. But this is a big one, Mosse, against Inter, which we know has been very, very good for a number of years now.
Atalanta will host Lecce. Yunus Musah looking to carve out a role with his new club.
What position do you think he's going to be playing?
Hopefully central midfield. I still think that's his best position, even though he's been moving around elsewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's hope he's playing, and then if we really kind of want to be greedy, hopefully he's playing in a place that mirrors what potentially could be his place in the national team. Although we've talked about the fact he might be an odd man out, and we might, who knows, maybe we never see Musah again with the U.S. team.
And the Netherlands, PSV will be away to NEC. We all talked about Balogun coming out of this window as once again the starter for the U.S., but at healthy again, Ricardo Pepi will be hoping to change that, and he's looking to feature this weekend.
And they see everything. And we were talking with Stu yesterday about how players will say, oh, I don't read this, I don't see that. And they read and they see everything. And don't think for a second that Ricardo Pepi hasn't seen what has happened, seen Balogun come back and seen him star. And to be fair, probably seen Josh Sargent, because you're always assessing whose position am I trying to take? Who am I up against? Who is my competition out there? And in this very fluid type of moment up top, you got to be doing everything in your possible power to consistently be on Pochettino's radar. And the best way for Pepi in this moment right now is to do what he has done now very, very well for a number of years, which is score consistently for club. And then obviously when he gets his chance, I would assume it would come in that next window, translated to the national team. And I think he will get his chance.
We go to Germany next. Leverkusen will host Eintracht Frankfurt. Leverkusen have a new coach. You might recall they fired Erik ten Hag. They've hired Kasper Højlund, former Denmark boss. So that is Malik Tillman's new manager.
I was disappointed that Tillman was not part of this window. So what we saw over the summer, I think it was a real kind of breakout performance. And not like in that bubble of the Gold Cup where it was just really good in the Gold Cup. I think there was a real recognition from you and from others, and including myself, that this is a guy that's going to vie for a starting position. But now, going back to what you said at the beginning of the show, if the formation has changed, where do you see Tillman showing up? In one of those two underneath?
Correct.
Okay. Who does he play over, and who's next to him?
Well, so you're talking with the U.S.?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think right now it would be Tillman and Pulisic playing behind Balogun, but, and we can mention this game next, Borussia Mönchengladbach hosts Werder Bremen this weekend. Fascinated to see what kind of season Gio Reyna has with Gladbach, because I still think Gio is a guy that in form raises the ceiling of that U.S. team and might be a perfect fit for one of those two spots floating behind the center forward. So he would be Tillman's competition if Gio can get himself back on track.
Oh, okay. All right. So if Gio is back on track, though. But until then,
Tillman,
you're going to have a Tillman, Christian Pulisic type of thing underneath Balogun.
Correct.
Okay.
And Gio and then Musah, who we mentioned at Atalanta, those are the two most fascinating Americans in Europe for me this upcoming campaign, with the moves that they made and can they get themselves back on track. How big a hole have they dug for themselves with the national team? Is it going to take an extended period of them playing well for them to get back in the mix? Or is it just a few weeks and, they'll pop right back into Pochettino's squads? We'll see.
Okay. What else?
We go to Spain next. Johnny Cardoso and Atletico Madrid will host Villarreal.
You kept mentioning Johnny Cardoso as one of the players that wasn't here. And yet, for a number of years now, we've talked about the fact that it hasn't translated to the national team, although he's done great things from a club perspective and has just gone up, 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 and up. Are you just slotting him back into the national team despite the fact that he hasn't
I was surprised. Last night when we were talking lineups with Stu, I assumed he was going to say Weston McKennie should be the guy alongside Tyler Adams in the central midfield. He said Johnny Cardoso. So Stu is even higher on him than I, because right now I think it's tough to make a case for Johnny as a starter. I think a guy that keeps playing well for Atletico Madrid probably deserves a few more chances to see if he can make it translate with the national team. But if the U.S.
how many more chances are you going to give him?
Yeah, it's tough. But if the U.S. had to go play like a must-win game tomorrow, I'm putting McKennie in the starting lineup before Johnny.
Okay. Let's see. What else?
And then we go to England. Fulham will face Leeds. That's Jedi Robinson against Brendan Aronson.
We really missed Jedi Robinson on that left-hand side. And he will take up that position, whether it's back three or back four, and I think he will do great things. When it comes to Aronson, do you think that he has had his time, or do you think he'll find a way back in?
I think he's definitely on the outside looking in right now. He's in a squad of 26. He's a guy that could grab one of those last spots, but I don't see him having a big role in 26.
Okay. All right.
You know, Matt Doyle, a guy who we both respect, he wrote a piece analyzing this window. And interesting, we all assumed that Jedi Robinson would slot in seamlessly into a left wing-back role, but Matt Doyle doesn't think so. He thinks Jedi is a dyed-in-the-wool fullback, and that wing-back role might be awkward for him. So he actually thinks switching to that formation casts some doubt about Jedi's role on the team and his place in the starting lineup.
Okay, look, if I love Matt, I love you, I love everybody. I'm a lover. If we somehow find a way to not have Jedi Robinson on the field, we better be awesome in terms of whatever formation we're playing or the personnel that is in that formation, because there has been nobody, I don't think anybody has been more consistent and more impactful than Jedi. I've argued over the previous cycle, you could argue Weah, but that would blow my mind if we got to a point where the changes were made in personnel and formation such that we didn't see Jedi Robinson. But who knows? Some guys, they just have to play in a back four, and that's where all the angles and that's where all the math works for them. And because the angles are very, very different, and the math is very, very different, and there is an adjustment. But I'm betting that he'll be able to adjust.
One non-American Premier League game we do want to mention, the big one this upcoming weekend. Manchester United will host Manchester City in the derby. Believe it or not, Manchester United have the better record right now. They have 4 points from 3 games. City 3 points from 3 games. After beating Wolves the opening weekend, they've lost 2 in a row to Tottenham and Brighton. So everybody once again wondering about Manchester City. I
think Manchester City is going to be just fine. And look, if Manchester United has found a way back in to
by the way, I screwed this up. It was the wrong way on the rundown. City is at home. It's Manchester City versus Manchester United.
Oh, that changes everything. No, it's still a classic matchup, and that maybe the balance has changed, and maybe it's going to be a competitive type of game. All right, cool. I'm up for it.
We go to Major League Soccer next. Big weekend there. Charlotte will face Inter Miami, which gives us a chance to talk Luis Suarez. So when the dust settled, it was 6 Leagues Cup matches and 3 MLS matches he was suspended for. Do you think that was adequate punishment for the spitting incident against Seattle in the Leagues Cup final?
Yeah, I think it was adequate, although I'm only looking at it as 3 matches. The 6 matches for Leagues Cup means nothing to me, and I certainly don't think it means anything to Luis Suarez. And it's not that they don't enjoy winning or want to win everything, but yeah, I just look at it as how is it going to impact him and his team from an MLS perspective, and they're going down the stretch here. And so I think it's fair for the 3-game suspension within MLS that it took this long. Okay, yeah, I can appreciate the fact that you want to make sure that you get it right and that you talk to the people involved and you have all of your facts in order before you make a decision that is a serious repercussions here and has an impact not just on the player and on the team, but on the race to the playoffs. but it took a long time for this to happen. But I think ultimately they got it right. Although the same amount of time was given to who was it? Busquets for taking a swing or something like that. So they're equating the swing with the spit, and I've already said that I think spitting is worse. I would rather have you take a punch, but I know the actual act of a punch. I think there's some people that feel that the two are not equal.
San Diego will host Minnesota in a top-of-the-table clash in the West, first against second.
San Diego, it says in San Diego.
Yeah.
Oof. Minnesota has just been so, I guess I could say sneaky good because it's Minnesota, but I'm still going to go. Whenever you have these really close games in MLS, there still is a competitive advantage, as there is a lot of places and a lot of leagues, to playing at home. So I think that tips the scale here. I will go with San Diego coming through at home against Minnesota. 1 versus 2. Ooh, my goodness.
Another good one. Vancouver hosting Philadelphia. Vancouver third in the West. Philadelphia first in the East.
The Vancouver pipeline, if you will, of national team players, kind of it's stopped now with Berhalter. And I know Berhalter is still kind of a fringy player, but I think when we're talking about 26 players, I do think that Mauricio Pochettino likes him. But by the way, sometimes we forget Pochettino was going to call Brian White in again, and then he couldn't come in, and Balogun came in. So, in the assessment of Pochettino and what he was looking at, that should come into play. And Brian White has not come good for the national team yet. Blackman did not cover himself in glory in the first game. I think he was adequate in the second game, but I don't think that Pochettino has happened upon a center back that is going to change the fortunes of this national team going forward. In that, I don't think Blackman's going to be back going forward into this next window. But when it comes from an MLS perspective, there is a comfort zone for all of those players and for that team, which is why they are a number 1 team. So it's a number 3 team over there in the West. And Philadelphia has just, when Jim Curtin went away, there was a possibility or a fear that he would take all of this ability and talent, which he undoubtedly has, but they haven't skipped a beat. They've just boom. It's been wonderful, and they are fun to watch, and they are going to be an absolute hard team come the playoffs. I would not want to get drawn with Philadelphia in the playoffs.
Also, Cincinnati against Nashville, second against fourth in the East. So it really is a terrific weekend in MLS.
Awesome. We're looking forward to that. Anything else?
That's it.
All right, let's take another quick break, come back, and we'll do some AskAlexi. Okay, welcome back. It's time for AskAlexi, that part of the show where you send in your comments, questions, and concerns. And keep in mind that our handle out there on all the old social media platforms is SOTU with Alexi. And you can use that hashtag AskAlexi out there. Or you can call into our State of the Union podcast hotline, which is 657-549-2297. That's 657-549-2297. Mosse, what do the folks want to know today?
First up, a question on X. Tyson Anderson asks, realistically, what are the chances we make it out of the group stage?
I actually think the chances that we make it out of the group stage are very good. All right, so keep in mind that, again, as a host of the World Cup, we are put in pot 1 of the 4 pots of 12 teams. So therefore, it's us, Canada, and Mexico, and then the other best 9 teams in the world, which means that we are going to avoid those other 9 teams in the world. Now, it should be said that, and someone pointed this out to me, that because there are 3 host teams, rather in the past where there's just 1 host team where you would avoid all of those other teams, we're only going to avoid 9 of them, and then the next best 3 would go to that pot 2. But I think that we are going to get not just a advantageous draw, but an absolutely winnable draw in terms of our group for next summer. So I would give us massive chances. It would have to go incredibly wrong for Pochettino and company for this U.S. team not to make it out of the group. And also keep in mind that we're back to a situation where best 3rd place teams actually make it out. So again, the sky would have to fall, and it would have to be a failure of epic proportions. And you're playing at home. First game, as we know, is at SoFi. Second game is up in Seattle, and then the third game is back here in LA at SoFi again. So that is all set. To your question, Tyson Anderson over there on X. Realistically, we have an incredible chance of making it out of our group, and I would even say of winning our group before even the balls come out, which we know we're going to come out over there in December at the draw. Would you agree with me, Mosse?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Another question on X. 00 Negative says, the process to buy World Cup tickets is so convoluted, I'm losing interest to attend in person.
Okay, 00 Negative over there on X. And for those that maybe missed it, although I saw a constant stream on my timeline today of people talking about the tickets that, well, the position to buy tickets that went on sale today or that was introduced today over there on FIFA.com, and the ability to put yourself in a position to buy tickets going forward. You know, there are always machinations that you have to go through when it comes to buying tickets. Somebody, in response to my response to 00 Negative over there on X, said, I can remember waiting hours and hours in line to buy the opportunity to buy a ticket for insert whatever big band was playing, or, you know, to buy an album or whatever it ends up being. So good things come to those that wait. There was a time, evidently, if I'm not mistaken, where the website went down. That's bad in terms of people doing what they need to do to fulfill the requirements, in this case, to buy World Cup tickets. But I think it's also an indication that there's a lot of people that want to buy these tickets, that are going to buy these tickets. And if you, 00 Negative, stop and tap out, don't worry. There are going to be thousands and thousands of other people that would gladly take your place in line, or gladly take the tickets that you have the potential to buy. So I don't think that's going to be ultimately a problem. Is it complicated? Yeah. You know, and with technology on the surface, it's supposed to be less complicated, but, you know, never put it past corporations or big companies, in this case, a big entity like FIFA, to make things more complicated. Not necessarily than they should be, but just more complicated than they have been in the past. But I bet you there's other people that have said, this wasn't a problem. I had no problem doing this, and maybe it's you. Maybe it's you, 00 Negative. Maybe you're not tech savvy, and you got to get with the 2025 going into 2026 world of technology.
Do you know that since 2015, I have covered 5 different World Cups for Fox, men and women, and I have never attended a single match?
So I am right there with you. And so someone asked me about that the other day, and do I feel like I've missed something? And I don't. I am a studio rat. I love it in the studio. I love being able to see a World Cup, obviously with the job that I do, but through that lens of being part of a broadcast. I'm not saying that I don't like going to games. I enjoy going to games, but I don't miss it. But who knows? It's been a while, like you. Maybe it's been a while. Maybe if we were to go there, we would reignite the excitement and the passion that comes from actually going to a game, and the smells and the flavor and the sounds.
The last World Cup match I attended was 2014 Brazil. I went as a spectator, stayed with family. I went to the Colombia-Uruguay round of 16 match at the Maracanã, in which James scored 2 goals, including a volley that was later voted the goal of the tournament.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
Wow. That's all right. Well, who knows? Maybe next summer we'll find a way, you know, if we're on the road, to get you into a game. You know, your Brazil team is qualified. Your American team is there. So, you know, who knows? Maybe we'll figure out a way. And maybe we'll get a camera on you to document the entire thing as tears are streaming down your face.
By the way, that Colombia-Uruguay match in 2014, I've already mentioned her once in this pod. We'll mention her again.
Jeez.
Judy Boyd was also at that match.
She was?
Yes.
Wow. All right. Well, that should be our goal next summer. With all of these teams and all of these games, as important as you are and as much as you are going to work next summer, we need to find a way to carve out a moment to get David Mosse to actually go to a game for the first time in what will be 11 years or something like that. So, okay, that's my charge. I'm gonna figure out a way to get you to a game next summer, Mosse.
Next up, we have a voicemail. Let's take a listen.
Hey guys, love your show. This is Adam from Davie, Florida. Calling to pretty much say goodbye to a legend of international soccer as far as commentating. That is the great Ray Hudson. Ray looks like he is hanging up the headphones, and I would like to see if you guys have any particular comments about the legend of Ray Hudson. He's been the voice for my adolescence up until now in my 50s. I'm really going to miss his voice to a beautiful game. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you.
All right, Adam. I tell you what, Mosse, let's push this to my one for the row, because I think that Ray, he deserves his own segment. Should we do that?
Yep.
All right, let's take another quick break, come back. Like I said, I'll give you my one for the row. All right, by the sight and sound of the van, you know it's the end of our show. And like I said, I'm going to give you a little one for the road involving the legendary Ray Hudson, who, as you just heard, announced his retirement from radio and television. Longtime voice over there when it comes to CBS and Sirius XM, and just has become almost a soundtrack for now multiple generations of Americans that have listened to soccer. And I wish him all the best as he heads out and hopefully takes care of himself and his family and has a wonderful future, because he has given us so much in terms of the performances, and I will call them performances, and I think he would grant me that and would hopefully agree, because I think he looked at the way that he broadcasted the game as a performance. I will say this, there's no way to please everybody out there, and you will have your supporters and your detractors out there, but when it comes to Ray Hudson, and I'm sure he had people that liked the way he did games and didn't like the way that he did games, but I think they all respected what he did because it came from his heart and it came from a place of passion. And at the end of a game, regardless of who won, if it was the greatest game that you ever saw or wasn't the greatest game that you ever saw, you felt that you were given his all, and that you felt that you were given a piece of his heart, and a heart that beats each and every day for the beauty and the magic that he sees in the game. But not only could he see it, but he could then articulate and translate it to the airwaves so that we felt it, whether we were at home watching on television, whether we were listening to it on the radio. We felt what he was feeling. And that is not always an easy thing to do. And that he did it with such a incredibly entertaining and witty and humorous way. The words that he chose to describe and the depth and flavor that those words elicited were absolutely incredible. And he was, I think, one of a kind. I think there's a lot of people that would watch or listen to a game specifically because he was involved, to hear what he was going to say and how he was going to paint this picture, which is really what he was doing with his voice and with the words that he used. And I cannot give any, I guess, greater compliment to someone other than to tell them how appreciative I am of the art that they were, in this case, voicing, but let's be honest, painting, singing, performing, whatever word you want to use. And he did it on a continual basis. And the art stands the test of time, and the art, it translates in that you feel it, like all good art. And his was some of the best art. So congratulations to Ray Hudson, and thank you from now multiple generations that you have been, like I said, the soundtrack to their soccer. And I'm sending good vibes to you and to your family as you go on. Mosse, anything before we go?
Yeah, just on Ray, my dad and I should talk about this. Lost in all the goofy expressions and funny things he would say, he would make really good points.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good analyst. I mean, the man knows the game. So I always found him a good listen from that point of view as well.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when sometimes when you're big and you're bold and you're over the top, to your point, some of the meat gets lost. And maybe that happened at times with Ray, but I think you and your father hit on it. I think enough people out there also recognize that there were layers if you cared to pay attention. And even the top layer was great, but if you even added other layers, that much better. So just a wonderful guy, incredible history when it comes to on the field, coaching off the field, and then obviously from a broadcast perspective, an American legend when it comes to the broadcasting game that we are in. Anything before we go, my friend?
That is it.
All right. We thank everybody. Again, it's been a hell of a week and a hell of a window, but onward and upward when it comes to this U.S. team under Mauricio Pochettino, and onward and upward when it comes to all of our soccer out there. Again, we're 375 days away from the beginning and the first whistle of the 2026 World Cup, and it's barreling down the pike right now, and I can't wait till it gets here, and we're going to have you each and every step of the way alongside us here at the State of the Union. So keep reviewing and downloading and rating and subscribing and doing all the different things that you do. And yeah, punching, double fisting, up and down. Smash that button. Smash that subscribe button over there on the old YouTube machine or Spotify or Apple or any place out there. And send us all your questions, comments, and concerns on X and Instagram and all the different places. We love you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the week. We'll talk to you again next week. And until then, and as always, my friends, size the day.